Let's bring in NBC's Ryan Chandler, who's in Dallas for us. Jeremy Wallace, political reporter for the Houston Chronicle, is at the state capitol. And Brendan Buck, former press secretary to former House Speakers John Boehner and an MSNBC political analyst. Jeremy, break down the redistricting plan for us. The state has, 38 seats in the House. How do Republicans plan to reconfigure it?
Well, okay, so we start up today, but it's a 30-day special session, and the redistricting portion of this may not start really in full force until next week. It sounds like we're going to have hearings later on this week, maybe over the weekend, starting up. So it's like there's a little time to be played out here. But essentially, look, the Department of Justice has flagged 4 specific districts in Texas, 3 of them in Houston, represented by African Americans or Hispanics. They want those districts to be the tools to reopen the entire redrawing of all of the congressional districts. Why that's important is that when they do that, there's going to be a counterbalance in other places where Republicans are hoping to make people like U.S. Representative Lizzie Fletcher more vulnerable for her reelection. You know, think about people in South Texas, too, where they're going to try to change those districts. So Vicente Gonzalez, he, too, might be more in jeopardy. So while they're saying they're going after these districts in Houston and the one in Fort Worth, the real mission is to go after these more competitive districts to maybe give the Republicans the advantage they need to win them next year.
So, Brendan, we know that redistricting usually follows the census, right? That takes place every 10 years. Last happened 5 years ago. So what does it tell you? What does it tell us that Texas is doing this now?
That the race for the House is as close as ever. Let's remember, the House is only divided by like 3 or 4 seats right now. And Donald Trump, who's, I think, the sort of brains behind this operation, understands that if the House goes the other way, he is facing all kinds of trouble. You've got investigations. He obviously was impeached twice before when there was a Democratic Congress. So I think he's looking for every advantage that he can get. But of course, as you discussed, highly risky as well. And I don't know that that's been fully appreciated enough by the White House. When you start cutting up districts like this, some of these people who maybe be safe Republicans are no longer safe anymore. Maybe
so
that's
Betta's
okay.
right about that they could come back to bite him in the butt?
Of course. I mean, it's simple math. If you are going to make a district that's currently held by Democrat more in play for a Republican, you need to put Republican voters in that district. That means you're taking Republican voters away from a Republican seat. So those Republican seats that surround that district that you're now trying to put in play are now less Republican. And potentially, let's remember, a first midterm of a new presidential election is usually really bad for the incumbent party. The House has been lost in the first midterm of a new president, every president going back to Bill Clinton, save for George W. Bush after 9/11. So history is against Republicans already. And so they're probably going to have a tough night. And if they get too aggressive here, if they get too cute, they try to grab too many districts and send too many Republicans into those Democratic seats, they could end up losing more seats than they had imagined. So you got to be really careful about how you're doing this. That's why really what we've seen in redistricting in more recent years is the opposite, consolidation, making it easier for members to hold on to their seats. So you could end up with a more competitive landscape. You could argue that's good. But for Republicans making sure they hold the House, it is a very risky strategy.
There's also, Ryan, this interlegislative intrigue that's supposedly going on. On one hand, you have Democrats, we're hearing, considering a walkout to deny Republicans a forum, and then Republicans could use a debate about the floods that happened as a way to keep Democrats from walking out. Help us understand what's going on there.
It's a very sticky political situation. Some of the House Democrats I've spoken to tell me that everything is on the table, given with a little bit of a wink. That means a quorum break, and that is not without precedent. You may remember just 4 years ago in 2021, a bunch of Democrats fled to Washington, D.C. to break quorum, and that ended up stalling an elections overhaul bill for more than a month. It's interesting they had to leave the state because there's a quirky provision of Texas law that allows House lawmakers to send law enforcement against quorum-breaking representatives and literally arrest them and force them to come back to the House floor if they are preventing the business of the state from carrying out. That is a serious option on the table for Democrats. We remember the reported guidance from Hakeem Jeffries, who had a conversation with some state lawmakers here, urging them that this is a serious moment and requires serious action. So quorum break could definitely be a possibility. It is politically tricky, though, because Governor Abbott, whether intentionally or not, was very smart in putting this flood mitigation priority on the agenda, which could mean that if Democrats break quorum to stop redistricting, they could also slow down needed flood relief while families are still looking for their lost loved ones. It's going to be a very interesting and brutal political fight playing out here in the next month, Chris.
So, Jeremy, how brutal could it get? Is there a suggestion that Governor Abbott and President Trump and the Republican Party might not get what they want from Texas?
Yeah, I talked to a state representative this morning, Ron Reynolds, out of the Houston area, and he said he's worried that if they do a quorum break, they're expecting that, Donald Trump and the White House could send National Guard to kind of track them down and bring them back to the state. As Ryan mentioned, the state already has tried to put rules in to keep Democrats from doing this in the future, but they're preparing for that kind of, brass knuckles kind of fight over this issue. And, certainly there is a risk here for Republicans, as y'all were talking about earlier. It's like you look at, there's Republicans in Congress now who barely won their first elections here in Texas. Think Dan Crenshaw, think Troy Nehls, think Michael McCall. All those folks barely won their races in 2018, 2020. When they go into a redistricting, all three of those guys might be facing much more competitive seats, and the Democrats are telling me they are going to fund whoever runs against them to the hilt to try to stop them.
I got to tell you, Jeremy, I covered the state capitol in Albany for 17 years. I thought that was crazy, but you guys win. Brendan, I should say that this isn't happening in Texas alone. Ohio, obviously also a red state. Republicans are considering making a similar move. We mentioned Democrats in blue states, places like New York, California, Illinois being mentioned. And then listen to what House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries had to say about plans in his state of New York and beyond.
I look forward to having a conversation with the governor about how do we ensure that New York maps are as fair as possible. If you have a situation where Republicans are unleashing every malignant scheme possible to try to undermine the principle of free and fair elections and to disenfranchise millions of people in Texas and beyond, that it's incumbent upon all of us to take a close look at how do we ensure that the congressional map writ large is as fair as possible.
Well, it depends on what your definition of fair is, Brendan, but where do you see this going?
I do think it's important to appreciate that while I think Republicans probably got an early jump on this whole scheme of gerrymandering and rewriting maps in ways that benefit their party, at this point, both parties do it pretty much shamelessly. I mean, they're going to go for whatever advantage they can get, and sure, they'll use Texas as cover for doing whatever they're going to do in California. But New York wasn't prompted when they decided that they were going to do the same thing. I mean, everybody does this now, and it's really destructive. I mean, I think gerrymandering is one of the most destructive forces in politics. It's one of the reasons why people don't get along or why we can't get anything done. But we shouldn't think that there's one sort of like pure side here. Republicans are doing it here. Democrats will do it somewhere else. This just kind of shows you, again, how narrow and how high the stakes are. When one or two seats can decide congressional agendas and the legislative priorities, they're going to do everything they can. Hakeem Jeffries wants to be Speaker of the House. He's not going to let them sort of take it away on a technicality like this.